let's get back into the deep end with your permission and cross to Mawasi in southern Gaza. Rosalia Bollen is there, a spokesperson for Unicef. How did you wake up this morning, Rosalia?
We woke up around 10 past 2 a.m. in the morning to the sound of very loud explosions, very heavy, intense bombardments, including in the vicinity of our guest house. And with every explosion hitting, I could see the sky lighting up. It was frightening. I really felt on edge because I heard the sound, the rumbling of planes and the whistling of fighter jets. So you know that a bomb is being dropped and that it can impact at any moment. You just don't know where. You wonder if it'll be close to you, and you're just waiting for that explosion. So that was 15 very intense minutes. Then it subsided somewhat, and the moment it subsided, I could hear people screaming outside for help. I could hear them yelling. I also heard sirens of ambulances throughout the entire night. The bombing also continued throughout the night, but with more space in between the explosions. And now this morning, we know that those bombs have also been hitting tents and structures where families stay because of the hundreds of people reportedly killed. And we have several dozen of children, and I've been receiving very graphic footage from my colleagues at the Nasser hospital who've been photographing children injured and dead who have arrived to that hospital. So it's been an incredibly tough night for all of us, but especially for children and their parents here in Gaza.
We'll return to that in just a moment. Before we do so, were you, colleagues, people that you work with, braced for this attack? Was it expected?
Well, fear has been hanging in the air for weeks now. When I would go around tented areas or meet with children in learning centers, children actually asked me, since you work for the UN, do you know if the war is going to restart? Do you think we're safe now? You think it'll last? Because my friends went back to their house in Jabalia, but my parents are staying here in Al Mawasi and they're afraid. So what do you think? You think my parents and I should go back to our home? Is it safe enough? And children always have that hope. And so it's really shattering that nightmare scenario has now materialized, but also
What did you say to them, Rosalia, when they asked you that question?
I told them that I also didn't know, honestly. It's really awkward. It puts you in an awkward
Of course.
spot. You want to give them an honest answer, and the honest answer is that nobody knows, but it wasn't looking good because already at the beginning of this month, there's been restrictions placed on goods going into Gaza, and that includes restrictions on life-saving supplies. UNICEF, we haven't been able to collect our assistance that is stuck at the crossing or right outside of Gaza because the crossings are closed to life-saving assistance. And then just a week ago, electricity to the water desalination plant in southern Gaza was also cut off. That's a desalination plant that turns seawater into drinking water for hundreds of thousands of people. So those were all really negative developments preceding this bombardment.
What else is UNICEF seeking to do on the ground in Gaza at the moment? And how stymied have you been by the cessation of these aid convoys?
It's a near impossible
Yeah.
and very frustrating environment to work in as a humanitarian when you don't have access, it's unsafe, you don't have basic supplies entering. We nevertheless continue to support critical services, essential service provision to children. For instance, routine immunization. We still have vaccines in our stock. So we will try to continue with that as good, as bad as we can. We actually have 180,000 vaccines sitting right outside the crossing. We're ready to bring that in any moment, the moment we're allowed to. But for the moment, we will have to do with what we have in our warehouses. Education is another one. In these temporary learning centers, kids don't just get a couple of hours of math, Arabic, and English, but they also can participate in recreational activities, in sessions for mental health support. So all of that will try to continue supporting that despite the impossible conditions.
Do you have any inkling of when that gate might open when those vaccines might be permitted to enter the Strip?
I wish we did.
Nothing at all.
We're completely left in the dark. We've repeatedly called for this blockade to be lifted without delay because children's lives depend on it directly. I think a good example too is specialized equipment that we have ready, ventilators for neonatal intensive care units. It's outside of Gaza, but that equipment is needed here inside because there's lots of preterm babies who need to be on respiration. Their lungs aren't fully developed. And without this equipment, these babies are very likely to die. We've actually already come across preterm babies throughout the war who died after a couple of days or a couple of weeks because of the lack of this type of very specialized equipment.
Can I ask about your own relationship with your own safety? How do you feel safe? Do you worry for your own safety?
I do worry because of the intensity and just the scale of the bombings. We've been saying throughout the war that no place in Gaza is safe. You'll have heard us saying that, and my sense is that we're back at that again. No place is safe in Gaza. Civilian infrastructure is being bombed, is hit, and really across the Gaza Strip. So it's a frightening moment to be in.
And I hesitate to ask you this question, but do you think much about what happens next, how things might end? I mean, our conversation, which you're far too busy, of course, to have been listening to, has been about the game-changing nature of the American political situation, how Donald Trump's residency now in the White House provides Benjamin Netanyahu potentially with even more impunity than he enjoyed before. How does this end? I mean, what does resolution look like?
Yeah, I mean, UNICEF, other humanitarian organizations, we've been calling for the immediate restoration of the ceasefire, and we can only hope that those calls will be heeded immediately.
Yeah, indeed. That's all any of us can hope. Rosalia Bollen, thank you for your time, and do take care. A spokesperson for UNICEF talking to us from Mawasi in Southern Gaza, where you heard what I heard. The notion of not even knowing whether it would be safe to return to your home under the auspices of the ceasefire that has now been roundly broken by Israel, and celebrated, of course, by Benjamin Netanyahu's most extreme supporters. Smotrich, also a member of his Security Council. So, I mean, I don't even know if you can ask, what does hope look like? What does optimism feel like in this space? If you are resisting the bleakest analysis